Hello, my friends. I'm Rick, and this is Mill Missy over here to the left, or to the right of me, and welcome to your seat at the table. And let's see if we get this thing going a little better. I'm still at a debate in my mind whether or not this headphone actually makes a look of difference, other than it. I have to have an elaborate setup over here to run more than one USB off of my laptop, which I wonder if it doesn't degrade shit. Anyway, this is the war issue of BattleTechnology. So we would be looking at issue 0204, or issue 4, which was $3.95 back in the 80s, I believe, when this came out. Let's see if they got an actual date on it. Yes, little miss. Yeah, I'm looking. Yes, I am. Well, it says September 30, 28. Issue 204. September 30, 28. Well, this is September anyway. It's a bit appropriate, don't you think? Come on. Pacific Rim Publishing, BattleTech, blah, blah, blah. Editor William Keith. Mr. Keith, $21 a year. Postmaster. Back when everybody had to worry about postmasters. I don't see a date. I'm sure there's a date in there somewhere, but I'm just not finding it. Anyway, I want to say the late 80s. But don't, if y'all know for sure, I mean, I could have gone on to Sarna. Hell, my entry for this comes from Sarna, so the odds are it'll probably tell us anyway. So, the opening begins, obviously, the wedding to Melissa Steiner and Hans Davion is taking place, and as a great, wonderful gift to his new bride, he decides to give her a new nation, and makes every living attempt to decimate the Compellans. Although some arguments could be made that perhaps he fell short of his actual ultimate goal, because at the end of the day he didn't take them out enough, because they come back. That's the thing about most of these houses, you know. I mean, you really can knock the knees out from underneath of them and probably even dismember them to some degree. Well, you can. Look at the Free Worlds League. I mean, the current status and going on over there. So we have the news service, war. Initial Davion strikes are successful. Davion Marshal faces court martial. Wolf's Dragoons enter the Davion service. Wedding on Terra. Then we get reports from the front. Foothold 1 on Aldebaran. Yes, death of a drive ship. David meets Goliaths on the St. Andrews Rock. If you ever wondered what a battalion worth of just straight up Goliaths would do and function, Cochrane's Goliaths is a unit for you. And it's one of the few units. Now, truth is, I've seen various versions of it through the mercenary books over the years, and it's not something that comes up very often. But, and the truth is, the loadout is not 100% Goliaths. I think the count at one time for one particular iteration was about 24, 28 mechs, and then there was like a lance or two of support mechs, some light mechs, and then some artillery mechs or something like that. Anyway, there's a reason why you don't see armies fielding battalions and companies and battalions made around one or two primary mech units or mech designs, which, you know, it really was meant probably for that. If you go back to the Star League, when every mech had a purpose and a role to fill, then it would not be uncommon to fire entire lances and companies constituting the exact same type of machine. Just imagine the ease of maintenance and logistics for something an outfit set up like that. Anyway, so we talk about St. Andrew, the Ivaar Goliath mystery. Like, where the hell did they get all those mechs? How did they get all these Goliaths? Because they talk about it. Because if you go to the original TRO, the original TRO implies that Goliaths are rare birds indeed, that they weren't made in massive numbers to begin with, and through attrition over time, and the factory that produced them for a while there was stopped. Yeah, here it goes. And yet Ivaar's excavation site, Cochrane's Goliaths mustered almost a full battalion, 28 out of 36 mechs of the GOL-1H Goliath. most apparently in good to excellent condition. So apparently they were able to find an old Star League weapons cache, and this is what they were full of. That's the story anyway. So aerospace fighter on strike on Algol. Strike low, strike fast. Live at the World of BattleTech now in 3D. Right? And we have Home for Christmas. First Prince Hans Davion, Commandant Lindsay Trebell, Lyran historian Thelos Alburn, and it goes on and on. The announcement of Lyran's Commonwealth Federated Sons' attack upon the other three successor states comes as a shock to those assembled at the wedding and throughout the successor states. Almost immediately, politicians, armchair warriors, and psychics all began making their predictions about the duration of the war, its quick victory in sight, or is the Fourth Succession War destined to grind on into an inconclusive horrors of attrition, etc., etc. So, right. And we have a story, The Walkover by Sergeant Simon Lascher. Right. Space gamer, fantasy gamer, space gamer slash fantasy gamers as to be the flagship of our role-playing division, such as blah blah blah. And I don't think it turned out to be the flagship of much of anything, to be honest. I don't remember if I ever got an issue of it. I might. I don't think I did, to be honest. So we have the story, Goliaths on St. Andrew. Right. Now we have the introduction of the FWL-1 Wolfhound. So technically, this would be apocalyptical, a non-canon mech. Pronounce it the way I can pronounce it, right? So apocalyptical mech. So it's not considered canon until it's officially added to one of the TROs, and I think it came out in pretty early because this was a gift mech that they built. The Hellhounds were involved in design and the construction of it, and Felon Kell was issued it as a gift as his first as a replacement mech or something. So anyway, right. This is where it was officially added to the list, where it wasn't officially considered canon until it's, blah. All right, and now we have the self-propelled sniper. One of the things about early BattleTech was the downplay of support units in combat. So while they acknowledged that there would be artillery units, so the early rule books, the early TROs only had the long tom, and then eventually they came out with the sniper, and then there was a third one, but and then some of the variations therein. But the truth is that was a very limited pool of a very viable modern weapon that you would carry over even into the future, and as later editions of the game proves that to be viable. So we see a reintroduction of some of that technology, considering it's extremely low tech weapon systems. Open air artillery is extremely vulnerable under the best circumstances, no getting around that, but with a lot of careful preparations in bunkers and emplacements or in fixed positions, where they're in literal bunkers and readouts, they're quite effective, and a lot of bang for your buck. So it's nice to see that the game mechanics, the game gurus eventually came around to their senses for that. So anyway, we got our sniper and the ammo carrier. We also see the Viking Hydrofoil. Then we get into BattleTech Simulator, optional rules variant 0204-A for miniatures combat. All right, position template, scale, movement, physical attacks, and improvising terrain. Optional rules variant 204-B, close assault. And this is where you have more than one mech actually in the same hex. Ideally, the hexes represent a certain amount of footage or meters or however you want to look at it. So on a normal battle map, the one hex, one mech rule is how this applies. But in reality, that mech is sitting in a much wider piece of ground. That's another thing that tends to get lost on Some players, in my experience, when they come and they look at things like range, oh, the 3 hexes, that's not very far. Real guns would blah, 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 the real guns are. Well, aside from the fact that real guns mechanics were never applied to the game in the world in the first place, then you skip past that, and we look at the concept of that hex actually represents a much greater space than what you think it does on the paper, on the table itself. So if you look at the scales for these things, I think in some cases it's 6 meters or 36 meters. I mean, depending on how you want to look at it. So, I mean, if it's a 6-meter square, that means it's got several hundred square meters inside that range. So that mech is not actually toe to toe with the next mech over. So by rights, close combat actually should take place in the same hex, where they're literally point blank within punching distance and grabbing distance of each other. They would literally be in the same hex, in my opinion. And so because of that, they've decided that you can have these things like close assault, where you have more than one mech engaged in combat inside a much narrower, smaller location. And it's much more realistic or viewlistic, or however you want to look at it. So it gives you kind of an example of one mech and then another mech, sharing the same close assault hexes, how they determine it. And so it's a matter of, I don't know that I've ever had a chance to put that rule into play. I don't think I did, so I don't know how well or how renovate or innovative it was at the time, let alone if it even carried forward to the day's rules. I'm totally oblivious or completely lost with the new current set of rules, because I have not played any, but actually played BattleTech on a table in 30 odd years, and that's just the whole truth, hard facts. There's a goal for my quote retirement. Day comes that I can sit down, well, then I'm just going to go spend it. I told my wife that I'm going to spend an afternoon or two every week at the local game store, being the crazy old goober in the corner, trying to stir up a game. Exactly what game, I don't know. We will deal with it when we get there. Excuse me. So it is what it is. So alright, so then we got, let's see what else is in here. Goliaths on St. Ander, Renegades Lost. Then we got the 100 Pipers, words by Sir Robert Kincaid. The 100 Pipers, Davion's 100 Pipers. So I am not going to try to sing. I'm not going to even try to sing that crap. Let's see, letters to the editor. Well, I don't tell you how many letters I wrote to these guys. It never, ever, of course, they only published 1 or 2, if that. So, it was just throwing stuff. I think they responded. I think I got answers back, even if they were canned answers, but yeah, right. So incoming, next action-packed issue: war, hence Davion's invasion of the Capella Confederation as flames of war racing across the inner sphere. Skyfall, Iron Aerospace fighters face American onslaught on the border world of Wyatt. Away borders, ace investigative reporter Harrison Coulter takes on an in-depth look at the strategy and tactics of free-fall combat aboard spacecraft and deep space facilities. Plus other features including regular columns, battlefield situation stories, and news from the inner sphere, and much, much more. Don't miss it. Right? Blah, blah, blah. And then there's a tiny disclaimer down here. I can't barely read it. I'm not going to try to stumble my way through it. So, there you go. Another issue of BattleTechnology. Till next time, my friends. You guys have yourself a great weekend. And are we even having it? I don't know. Something's not. What is... Alright. Yeah. Cut it. What the hell is the problem?